It's one crisis after another in the Middle East. While Iran and Pakistan have carried out reciprocal strikes into each other's territory, the US and UK keep hitting Tehran-backed Houthi sites in Yemen. And it's all happening against the backdrop of Israel's war on Gaza, which has inflamed already tense conflicts in the region. And Ankara warns bigger threats may be ahead. Zeynep Gokce tells us more.
Just 2 days after Tehran carried out airstrikes in Pakistan, Islamabad retaliated with similar strikes, which has left at least 9 people dead in Iran's southeast. Both countries said they were defending themselves against terrorist groups operating around their borders. Earlier, Iran had hit targets linked to Daesh in northern Syria and fired missiles on the Iraqi city of Erbil near the US consulate, targeting what it called Israeli spy headquarters. Tehran says the strikes were in response to deadly twin bombings that hit the city of Kerman on January 3rd. Following the escalating tensions, Türkiye's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan called for restraint from all sides, but stressed that Israel's war on Gaza has increased regional escalation.
We observed that the tension has also had repercussions on Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, the Persian Gulf, and the Red Sea.
Over the past week, the US and UK launched airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen in retaliation for their attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea. The Iran-backed Houthis say their assaults will stop once the Israeli aggression and siege on Gaza ends. Israel's response to the October 7 cross-border attack has been severe, with its air and ground offensive killing nearly 25,000 Palestinians. And now, as several countries engage in missile and airstrikes across the region, Türkiye's top diplomat warns that the war might even spread beyond the Middle East, unless the Palestinian issue is resolved through a just solution. Zeynep Gokce, Strait Talk.
And now for more on Ankara's call for containing the fallout in the region. Joining me from Islamabad is Hannan Hussain. He is a political analyst. And from Ankara, Ahmet Keser, an associate professor at Hasan Kalyoncu University. Gentlemen, welcome to Strait Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So Hannan, could you walk us through what's been happening between two neighbors, Iran and Pakistan? Why have tensions escalated this far?
Thank you so much. So it all started off with Iranian missile strikes in Pakistan side of Balochistan. The assumption from the Iranian side was that it was attacking terrorist hideouts of Jaish al-Adl, a group that has taken up arms against Iran for a long time. But the fact indicated that there was an attack that led to a losses of 2 lives in Balochistan and injuring a couple others. And then Pakistan, of course, responded with retaliatory airstrikes, which caught Iran by surprise. Of course, those were focused with more precision on 2 anti-state groups who have a history of kind of straddling the West border. That was the Balochistan Liberation Army and the Liberation Front. Diplomatic ties have downgraded since, and then we see a high degree of tension surrounding it. Why have tensions escalated? 2 key factors. First of all, it's the gravity of the event. We've seen months and months of cross-border tensions between these 2 countries, but never has it been translated into an outright escalation through a violation of Pakistani airspace and attacking these hideouts. It's important to note that past Pakistani diplomacy and cooperation has focused on getting these groups kind of better managed and focused in a way that both countries are united. Key channels of communication are are open actually, and
yes.
The current state of escalation kind of puts those 2 things at greater risk.
So Ahmet, but what actually pushed Iran to launch what it calls anti-terror operations in Iraq, Pakistan, and Syria? I mean, have they been carried out in response to the terrorist attacks within its borders, or did they have a different reason?
That's a confusing question and good question, Ayse. I think after the Gaza war has started between Israel side and the Hamas, there is an increasing tension on Iran also to conduct something against some groups, and especially the Israeli-supported groups in the region. So because of that reason, in a couple of days, Iran has just conducted several couple of attacks in almost all the neighboring countries, including Iraq, Syria. But that is the first time, which is the Pakistani case, because when it comes to Iraq and Syria, yes, there are two failed states, not sovereign totally, and they are not totally conducting security on their own territory. But when it comes to Pakistan, there is a new and special case, and that is first time conducting, claiming that an anti-terrorist attack into a sovereign country like Pakistan, which may have a potential to escalate the situation in the region.
So, Hannan, as Ahmet pointed out, Pakistan has become the first state to strike Iran since the Iran-Iraq war in 1980s. So talk to us about this, its significance, and has Pakistan in a way crossed an important line by hitting inside Iranian territory, which the US, even the US and Israel have been careful not to do so?
Sure, so one by one. When we talk about crossing a line, I think Pakistan would have actually crossed the line had it provoked Iran. But since it was a power that was retaliating in proportion to strikes on its own soil, I think Pakistan then kind of delivers an important distinction that could lead to near-term calm as well. And then when you focus on the fact that the gravity of it, look, it's very significant. First of all, it kind of defeats the illusion of outright Iranian deterrence against any attack that it conducts. You look to Syria, you look to Iraq, and you understand that many of the times when the IRGC has conducted these strikes, the onus of managing reactions has been on Iran's network of closely curated proxies. We do see that in Iraq as well with the Islamic Resistance of Iraq, which is a network of loose Iranian proxies. They've been kind of leading the response in Erbil, following IRGC's strike. So that wasn't the case in Pakistan. So I think, in this term, Iran would have to carefully coordinate and see, look, how attack on Pakistani soil would kind of lead to a proportional response within its borders, and the fact that Pakistan has strong sovereignty and has zero compromise attitude means the onus of future provocations and their escalatory risk could fall flatly on Iran, indicating a much different case from other escalations we've seen.
So, Ahmed, we're still dealing with the fallout from Iran's attacks on Erbil in northern Iraq, which has faced condemnation from the international community. Is that front escalating as well?
For sure, Ayse, because all these kind of Iranian attacks within the region has a potential to escalate a new kind of Sunni and Shia conflict within the Islamic groups as well. So that's why I think Iran has to act very carefully when conducting such kind of attacks or operations in the region. Because when we ask the question, whose interest is that? When the Israel and Hamas conflict is ongoing in Gaza, if these kind of issues push that issue in the back to the second or third place in the agenda, we can say that is only for the benefit of USA or Israel, not for the regional countries. So that's why Iran should act very carefully when conducting those kind of issues and should think at least twice before conducting.
So, Hannan, now that Iran has hit 3 countries, are we likely to see more attacks in the Red Sea by the Houthis who enjoy support from Tehran?
I think we are. We're going to see a lot of that because you see, if you look back to how the Houthis have been responding, the United States has conducted their 4th round of strikes against the group. And then the group has obviously let off any sort of exceptions when it comes to Western control as well. We also see that Iran has had quite a softer tone towards the Houthis when it comes to kind of encouraging and accelerating these shipping thefts as well, and then further hijacks. So I think when you talk about attacks with the United States kind of going deep into it and Iran kind of giving this more of a regional scope, there's broader space for the Houthis to kind of continue the disruption of shipping attacks as well, and then also continue to kind of alarm Western countries and tell them to have a greater toehold in this particular region rather than having a foothold of military interference.
So, Ahmet, Türkiye has urged Iran and Pakistan to de-escalate their latest tensions. What kind of a role could Ankara play here? And does Türkiye face a risk of being drawn into a wider conflict?
We see a similar situation here because when we look at the Baluch separatist groups, the Baluch Liberation Front and Baluch Liberation Army conduct terrorist activities against Pakistan and use Iran territory as a safe haven. On the other hand, Jaish al-Adl, which is the God's Lions, they conduct terrorist attacks against Iran and use Balochistan, which is a Pakistan's region, as a safe haven. So instead of conducting these kind of attacks without informing the other sovereign state, I think it is better for Iran and Pakistan to go into collaboration and coordination. And Turkey may have a good mediator in between them, between the two countries, because Turkey has, as we know, very good relations with Pakistan for centuries. And also, even if they are regional competitors in the region with Iran and Turkey, they are very careful about not going into conflicts against each other as well. So I think Turkey can play a good mediator role in between this one to solve this problem peacefully.
So Hannan, how connected are these latest incidents in the war in Gaza, and will Iran's attacks on fellow Muslim countries divide what was a unified approach against Israel's brutal attacks in Gaza?
The Iranian defense minister has also openly said that, Iran is a missile power and that we are going to project our strength. So first of all, I think the Gaza war has basically led to Iran describing this as a broad bracket of security threat rather than a specific one. And that could set an ominous precedent for kind of expanding attacks elsewhere. I think in Pakistan's context, Iran has been absolutely warned because, consequences coming from a nuclear power with whom you share a huge border is quite different from kind of sponsoring or facilitating attacks in the context of Gaza. I think the real concern is about a regional escalation, and that could only, I'd say, in a scenario kind of work against the interests of the region in South Asia. If, for example, Iran tries to kind of advance this misadventure with the understanding they will have some sort of, a cushion against Pakistani attacks. But what we see from these strikes is the fact that both countries are moving towards a greater calm, practically because the current situation is untenable.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Strait Talk.